Hi, friends. We are back again, and the theme is Soaring Through Chaos. I have my friend here, Jay Chodagam, and he has been one of my inspirations to get into this field. At a very young age, in his 20s, Jay got on this path of self-awareness, and I've always been curious to hear his story. So, Jay, tell us a little bit about how you got into this in your 20s.
Yeah. Hi, Shankar. Thanks for having me on the show. So the story goes back to when I was in college. I was growing up. I was a very high achieving, goal oriented, super motivated young person. And I was into sports. I won the national championship in sailing, and then I went into one of the best universities in my field, and I got internship the very first summer in my dream company. And so seemingly everything was looking great. I was paved on this path towards so-called success. And yet when I sat with it and I looked into the future of that road that I was endeavoring going down, I just didn't feel like that was my definition of happiness. I was buying into some other person or community or society's definition of happiness. And I was
Mhm.
like, okay, if I spend all of my life trying to go and achieve success or that goal set by the corporate standards and the society standards, I didn't see that I was going to be arriving at my destination. Then I asked myself, what is my destination? And I was like, first of all, what does fulfillment mean to me? And the answer was, it's not this, but I don't really know what it is. And there's a saying in India, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And so the story goes that I used to go every Christmas to visit my family back in India. And this one trip I made, I came across a childhood friend of mine who was a PhD in psychology. That fellow was one of the best young scientists in India. The president of India had awarded him that gold medal. And he was one of the smartest kids in my class growing up in high school. And he started doing meditation. And I'm like, what on earth is he doing? He came from a Islamic background. He came from a very orthodox Islamic family, and I, been to his house, and I know what his background is like. And what he was doing here was clearly not Islamic. It was something else. And I was like, what is it? And because of his background and my association, my respect for this guy, I knew it was not some kind of a passing fad, something that like just like a dream that he woke up from and he was experimenting with it. There's clearly something that had a little bit of meaning to it. And so he invited me to the meditation center, and I was blown away. On this very first day, at this very first sort of intro session, they were delving into this question about who am I really, and what is my purpose on this earth?
Wow.
Exactly. So that was my response as well. I was like, wow, this is a question that every human being on this planet needs to know need to first of all ask themselves and given tools how to go about finding the answers to it. And yet nobody does it. Not universities, no corporate programs, no societies, nothing. Nobody does this thing. And I said, this is amazing. And long story short, I took a few more sessions. I made a few more trips to India before I actually got a little bit more deeply involved with it. And I came back to university where I was studying at that time, and I started a club on campus for
And
real.
if I may interrupt you for a second, which university and where were you?
Yeah, so I was living in Austin, Texas, and this was the University of Texas at Austin.
Okay.
So I started a meditation club. Believe it or not, there wasn't a single one. Now it's a whole different ballgame. Now everybody talks about meditation. It's like the cool thing. Like after, I guess Lululemon invented the latest yoga costume. Now people are like, inventing apps and, all these devices that, where you look cool, looking like, you're meditating. So no, this is before those days when, it was not really the fad. So yeah, I mean, so I went to one of the, I don't know if you know this, but UT Austin is one of the biggest university campuses in India. I mean, America and India, I guess, if you take it in any demographic, but in America, it's, I think, Ohio State and UT are the biggest campuses. And
Yes.
you won't believe it, but there was not a single meditation club there. And I started the first one. And then I just kind of got so interested, not because of anything else, it's my own personal growth and then sharing that with others. And soon thereafter, I got to be known as a leader in this space, not because I wanted it, just because I kind of kept opening the doors because of my own personal practice. and here we are.
Wow, wow, very interesting, and especially jumping into this in your 20s. And I met you when you were barely maybe 30 something, and I was initially skeptical because I was tired of all the gurus and babas and all that. And what you said, and our, either like quick, get rich quick, Lululemon style things, I was not at all into any fads. I was doing mindfulness meditation at that time, Vipassana, and studying the science at Stanford. But what I saw in you was that inner peace. And in what ways did it change your life? Most people would say you're too early to get into meditation if you got in 20s. Did you get any pushback from family? How was it like going into it so early in your life?
That's a great question. So I tell you, that's one of the, I'm glad you asked it, because it's a thing that I struggled with, the transition, not by choice, but the transition and the social response to my choice in life. And that's a very important thing that you're asking, because I think this is something that any human being that chooses to embark on a new path, whether it be meditation, mindfulness, whatever, your diet, your professional career, personal choices, whatever, gender change, pick your own flavor, but I think it's just going to be the same issue. Because you grow up in an environment, you're born in an environment, then you're raised in an environment, and then you choose to, then what happens is, because you have not thought through it, you haven't really found your own ground, so to speak. You become an average of the company you keep, and that's very comfortable, right? Because people like who they are, not really because who you are. And there's this nice status quo that everybody's kind of floating along, on this very calm river, so to speak. But then you decide suddenly that you're going to plunge, and you come up with some realizations, and you're going to switch tacks, and you're going to swim upstream or cross stream or whatever. And then you suddenly hit up against like this tide or this current that is flowing in not necessarily in your direction. So what happened in sort of that being the concept is I lost all my friends. So I told you I was in college. And, we, college, partying, and, I had a fun roommate, we had motorcycles, and yeah, we were like the fun bunch in my class. And then we'd have parties every weekend. And suddenly I've stopped drinking. I stopped going out late nights. I was sleeping early, waking up early, and doing what? Meditation. So just like flies, they just started dropping off. And, it was a very challenging time for a young person, like you pointed out. I was in my early 20s at that time, and for somebody to lose your sense of, and that time is, I don't know if you've understood the neuroscience of child's development and adolescence. Your community is everything, because you're moving away from the nest egg of your household into being an independent human who's going to be, like they say, the provider for the house, being provided to the provider. So the transition, actually, there's a lot of neurological changes that are happening inside your brain, some real transformation from just even the brain chemistry. Anyway, so in that time, when people seek out to do all kinds of crazy things to find sense of community and belonging, I'm actually moving away from a very stable kind of a situation. And that was sad, but also my gut told me that I needed to go and live my truth. I needed to be who I was being called to be, and that I shall be okay. And so what happened is a complete drop off amongst my friends. And then as I stuck to it and I started being a little bit entrepreneurial in the sense of starting these clubs and, creating groups, and eventually that club, when I was done with school, I got a job in the same town from a tech company. And then I started, I rented a home, and then my home became the next meeting ground, right? So over a period of time, I started attracting the bees to my honeycomb, so to speak, right? So I was creating this honeycomb, and I had to have patience and faith that this is my life and this is how I'm going to choose without compromise, unapologetically. And then over time, I just started creating this amazing community of people, one of which you are. I moved from Austin to San Francisco, and the Bay Area was, I think it was like a bigger cauldron of what I was really made up of. If you think of two parts of my brain, so I was an engineer, that's my training and my professional background, but I'm a spiritual enthusiast. I'm a seeker. I'm like constantly learning, and San Francisco Bay Area, as you know, is probably the epitome in the world for those two aspects, right? And I'm, as you can tell, I'm a little bit entrepreneurial, not like anything like some of the people here who are serial entrepreneurs, but so nevertheless, that's that spirit. And so for me, the Silicon Valley Bay Area is really a breeding ground for thought leadership, right? And I feel like I've come home when I came here. So anyway, so all of that to say that as I stuck to my belief, my faith in what I was being called to do, I attracted people, amazing people. I have today just an incredible company of friends who are doing pretty incredible things in the world, both, whether it's, when I say world, it could be for the family, for their companies, for the community, for the world at large, politically, etc. These are people that I would never have otherwise access to. There's nothing else. I mean, from an economic standpoint or from a social strata, I mean, I don't have anything, no other accolades to fit into that thing, except that we have the connection at heart. We are all here for the right spirit, and sort of like what you picked up on when you saw me, and I said, okay, this guy is spiritual, but he's not a Baba.
Exactly. And in fact, one reason I'm talking to you, Jay, like I'm talking to many of my friends who have been on this path of understanding oneself. We're not talking about even religion per se. We're talking about self-understanding, awareness, and calming down, slowing down, whatever it takes to find what's meaningful. And one reason I'm talking to everybody all of a sudden, I didn't do it all these years, is because people are calling me and they're saying, Shankar, I mean, we're going through this pandemic and all this chaos. People are losing lives, people are losing jobs, all kinds of craziness is happening. How can I help? How can you help us? And suddenly there's a huge resurgence of need for either prayer and for meditation. I fully understand. I got into it myself when I was going through pain in my life almost 20 years ago. Again, having gone through startups, serial entrepreneurship in whatever way I could do, but a real understanding that that wasn't it. So my question is, can a time like this be the right time when people would move into a deeper self-awareness journey? And if so, do you have any suggestions for them so that they don't go through anything abrupt in which, there's a lot of challenges that people go through. I went through a lot of challenges. A lot of friends dropped me or I dropped them because I was no longer drinking. I was no longer anything that's so-called trendy, right? I was not even trying to make money. No startups after that. No financially driven startups after that. So it was quite unnerving. But do you have any suggestion? What would you say to people who want to make that transition? And how would they judge if this is the right time?
Yeah, no, that's great. I think great question. I think the answer is actually very profound, and I'm also myself trying to get my head around what is the message of COVID-19. Mother Nature has thrown this thing at us as a blanket statement for it across the world. I mean, can you imagine what other factor could have brought entire 7-point-something billion people on this planet completely to a grinding halt across the globe, regardless of your political affiliation, your religious affiliation, whether you believe or don't believe, it doesn't matter. It's brought everybody. So there is a huge message here. And as we have already started seeing, again, whether you're an ecologist, whether you believe in climate change or not, you've seen that for this last 8 weeks or so that we've been in quarantine, nature has had a chance to rejuvenate. The Himalayas can be seen for the first time. Dolphins are coming out in Venice. The air is cleaner in some of the most polluted cities in the world. Bears are coming out in national parks and roaming freely, it's like they've reached the land, and it's so beautiful to see all of that, right? So nature has found its balance. Can you believe it? In 8 weeks, such incredible things that, human beings are sitting at tables at United Nations and have been arguing for years, for decades. And then boom, nature comes and throws this thing at us and says, you know what, kids, lockdown time. Kids stay in while I do the cleanup. And you know what? It's rejuvenating. So we're seeing it. So now that's the environmental, that is the ecological, that's the nature's requirement, and it's brought us. Now, obviously, Mother Nature is not just interested in itself, it's also benevolent. It's interested in us. So what are the messages for us? We needed to slow down. The human being cannot keep accelerating endlessly into this mad obsession to go and consume. Because that's what it is. I mean, think about it. Most of our lives, what do? We do things so that we can go and buy and accumulate and stuff our houses with things. That's the number one sport, regardless of country, affiliation, nationality, religion, etc. Right? It's a number one sport. Consumerism is the number one thing that's happening on this planet. And so that has also come to a stop because, there's no more malls open, there's none of that, right? So there's not that thing that, go and hang out and just buy things just to gratify yourself. And as a result of it, humanity has gotten this beautiful gift of slowing down and spending time with oneself. And I tell you that is an incredible, valuable thing. The number of stories I've heard of families cooking together, teaching their kids how to cook, how to clean the house, how to play, how to entertain themselves. I don't know, but where you are right now, you're in Mexico, I know that, but I don't know exactly what the stipulations there are. Where I live in California right now, we're allowed to go out. We can go for walks. Of course, the social distancing, 6 feet with masks and all of that. But we can go for hikes. But there are several countries I'm speaking to on my video conferencing and my live webinars where people are not allowed to get out of their buildings, out of their homes.
Yes, in cities like Bombay. Yes, it's happening.
I was talking to my friend in Colombia and other places recently in Spain and then in Italy. Of course, now things are changing, but until recently, so I have these friends who are saying that they can't even leave their home. So you see the kind of innovation, if of course, if the parent is, or if the people involved are going to use this as a sign to innovate, as a way to use this as an opportunity and say, not give up. And, there are people who are pulling their hair out and they're going crazy and there's a lot of mental illness. So, that's a different thing. We'll talk about that in a second. But if you looked at this as an opportunity for bonding, or if you live by yourself, or even if you live with a few people, as an opportunity to even bond with yourself, is an incredible gift. It's that thing that, that we've always do. I wish I had more hours in a day. Boom, here, you have your more hours in a day. What are you going to do with it, right? So this is a time for contemplation. This is a time for reflection. This is a time for really asking ourselves those deep questions. How do I want to go? How do I want to show up when this lockdown is lifted? What is going to be my new normal? Because guess what? That normal that we came from is what brought us to this pandemic. So any amount of a little bit of common sense will tell us that going to repeat all of this again is not going to give us a different result.
True.
That's a fool's prophecy.
That would be madness.
Yeah, it's literally, that's the sign of madness, that you're expecting something different when you keep doing the same things. So hopefully we're using this time, this gift that you've always been wanting of more time, to really connect with yourself, tune in, prioritize what is it that you want, find your calling or new calling. Obviously we've all evolved, we all tend to kind of, been there, done that, and say, okay, if you already have been a deep person and you felt quite aligned, maybe there's a new thing. For example, I'll share with you my own thing. I meditate every day, 2 hours a day sometimes, and I do this, annual retreat for myself. I do this, you do Vipassana, I do my personal silence, where I go away for 15 to 21 days of personal silence in the month of January. So I've been doing meditation for a while. Even having said that, COVID has brought me a gift, which is, as you know, Shankar, I'm a person who travels the globe and teaches around the world. I teach on 4 different continents. The last 16 months, I've been to 24 countries. If you do the math, I was basically 15 days in a country, no more, right? For me, it has been a chance to say, you know what? I have to change that paradigm. I cannot keep jet setting around the world. I cannot keep burning up the ozone layer, flying, zipping through, across the world, and just, putting out my carbon footprint. I had this gnawing at the back of my mind all the while, But COVID-19 said, you know what? That's not some to-do list that you can put on the back burner. You need to prioritize that. And boom, I'm here. I've signed up on Zoom. I started conducting. Guess what? It's beautiful because I don't have to do planning, logistics, bookings, meal planning, travel arrangements for my busing people from one place to another during my retreats. I'm just, sitting here at Zoom or in the convenience of my home, and I just keep changing the backgrounds if need be. And we have such a great time. I just finished a 30-day series, a 215-day series, incredibly well received. And the other benefit of it is the scalability, the reach that I'm having, because when you go to an on-premise, on-site kind of a retreat, okay, my retreats are about 25, capped at 25 because of logistical reasons. But now I have 100 people. I can have 200 people in the room, right? So incredible gift. So there's the answer to your question. Lots of things, lots of realizations.
And I think the concern many people have is exactly what will happen after the pandemic is over. And I'm hearing the noise of auto rickshaws and cars is back again in some of the smaller cities in India. I hear that people are now again going outing and all that in some of the cities in the US. There's that some people have that morbid fear. Would we go back to the old normal? And if not, what steps can they do at an individual level, at a family level, at a community level, or at a, in the corporate world and so on? Do you see any lasting changes that are going to come out of this whole thing? And if
Absolutely.
so, what should be the right approach for individuals to, how should people approach it?
Yeah. So I just kind of talk from a very big picture down to the individual. So let's start big.
Okay.
So in my life, and I think it's probably similar in your life, there were two significant events that changed the way that we live on this planet, that changed the way we interact and the way that we communicate, etc. So that first one was 9/11. And 9/11, for many people, they thought it was a singular event that happened on a day. And it was this, group of radical people who flew their plane into the buildings. But the world has never been the same. And in so many different ways, and our way of how the surveillance, for example, Department of Homeland Security was set up in the United States, and it's not gone. If anything, it's only become more prominent today in our lives than ever before. And the security, the sense of, people probing or the government probing into people's lives and no sense of trust. Unfortunately, it's not a good thing, but that has become prolific. It's become something that has affected the entire planet, even though it happened in one particular city in one corner of even this country. The second such major event in my life, or in fact, even bigger event in my life, is what we're going through right now, the COVID-19. So like the 9/11 exercise, this is not something that's just going to come and go, as if nothing happened. We're not just going to get up and say, okay, I've been there, done that, and we're just going to go back to the normal. No, a lot of things will change. And a lot of things will change. I have cousins who are doctors, and one of them is a pulmonologist, and he was telling me how the ramifications of this disease, and if you understand even the different symptoms it's showing to people, it's not like, it used to be when we first heard, it was this thing that would go infect the lungs, and then, you would have a hard time breathing, and you need to be on a ventilator, and then you can eventually stop, your lungs stop working and you die. Okay, so that's one thing. But now we're seeing so many other symptoms of it, issues in the stomach and issues in the legs. I mean, issues in even like yesterday, a friend of mine, not very happy to announce this, but I think it's worthy of talking about it. This girl, she's in her late 20s, very athletic woman, living in San Francisco, very careful, very well educated. So not a stupid person who would just go and, party and acquire this disease. Anyway, she got this thing, I believe, she thinks, she doesn't know for sure, but she thinks when she was out grocery shopping. And yesterday was the 54th day since she had first been diagnosed with it. Okay, 54th day.
Wow.
Right? And she was saying how she's past all of the initial problems, the initial things that are popularly, described in media and, TV and so on. But Now she's going through something that is a neurological after effect. She experiences
Yes.
low-level shocks when she's sleeping in bed. There's no shocks. There's nothing. It's just one of the side effects of COVID-19, right? So when I talk to my cousins who are doctors, they tell me that first of all, the inoculation, so that, to get the get
Vaccinations.
vaccination first, that for that to be synthesized and then for that to be mass produced. The second thing is the cure. They still don't have a cure, right? We're quite far away. And then the mass production of that to be able to get to everybody. And in between, you have all of these people who are claiming all of this is a hoax, and it was some sort of a story fabricated by China or whoever, and that doesn't really, there is no truth to it, and they can go back to partying, sitting on the beaches, or going to restaurants and going to malls, etc. They want to open up the country, open up the states, etc. And so what they're going to do is that they're going to be the carriers, whether they realize it. There's another interesting angle to this thing. There's a symptomatic carrier that you can play that role. So you're bringing it into your household, you're bringing it to your family, your old ones, your young ones, the vulnerable ones, and not even know that, right? So the effect of that will be seen in the second wave, because now it's spring and summer for most of the parts of the world, except for the southern hemisphere. But majority of the world, as you know, is the northern hemisphere. So when the next wave of cold kicks in, which is this next winter, this would have spread a whole lot more while the research scientists are scrambling to find a drug. And then boom, when the second circumstances come, which is appropriate for its thriving, for the symptoms to show up, we'll be caught unawares, right? So I'm not trying to be morbid, but I'm trying to be factual here, right? These are doctors in my family who care about me, therefore they're sharing this information with me. And I'm sharing that information about my friend in downtown San Francisco, who's 54 days into it, she's still struggling, right? Because I want you people out there to be careful. I don't want you to be complacent. I want people to take the necessary precautions that our scientists and our doctors are saying, because that's the best. That's the best information we have, and not your belief systems or some other political angle to this. That's not going to help you. That's not going to make you survive. And even worse, okay, whether you survive or not, if you become the cause for somebody else's death, it's going to be hard to forgive yourself for that, right?
Yeah. In fact, I'm noticing that even presidents and prime ministers who earlier called it a hoax are slowly at least reconciling with the fact that they cannot control this tiny little virus. And this is not the first time we've had an epidemic of this proportion. The earth has gone through it, but we have short-lived memory. So we don't remember what happened 100 years ago because we weren't there. Our parents weren't there in most cases. So I think human memory is quite short-term. We've forgotten many things, including the world wars and definitely the old pandemics. At an individual level, how can people be prepared for any such future resurgence, which almost looks inevitable if I believe any of the reasonable, thinkers, feelers that I know around me, whether it's the neuroscientists or the doctors or the therapists, they're all saying first that there will be a second wave, maybe even a third wave, and that's at the physical level. But then at the emotional level, at the mental level, as right now it's not touched the middle class as much. It has touched the poor, and it has definitely touched the older people who are over 60s and 70s. But I'm starting to see people in their younger age and also from upper strata of society financially also getting affected. So that's going to change people's thinking. I see fear building up. You know what I mean? I see a whole amygdala hijacking happening, to put it in neuroscientific terms. In other words, the rational mind stops, and then we are in, oh my God, what do I do? What do I do? The panic sets in. So what do you recommend that people do? People are looking for ways out, but I think there's no way out there. There's nowhere to run. So what should people do?
Wow, that's beautiful. Great question. I think the answer is, then there's a whole world within that one can escape into or go into. And sometimes, it's so interesting that when I say this, I'm also thinking about just even the earth and the discovery. There's so many projects that we hear about whether it's SpaceX or Virgin Galactic and so on, where there's billions of dollars being spent into discovering outer space. But what about even just on this planet? How little do we know what's happening under the surface of the oceans, for example?
Even the colony on Mars is not going to be ready for us yet.
Yeah, I don't. Well, ready or not, I don't think it's just. I think our planet is a beautiful place. I really think that we live on a pearl. We live on a gem. It's just one of the magical. Even if you look at it from outer space, I think our planet far, trumps anything else in terms of its beauty and its diversity and its, it's just gorgeousness, if there's a word like that. So, having said that, I just want to say that we tend to oversee some things that are just underneath our nose, so to speak, right? And in this case, it is just our own heart, our own being that has been, it's a child that has been left unattended for a long time. For most of us, I mean, some of us have been attending to it once in a while, but wherever you are on the spectrum, whether you're a complete novice or ignorant about the inner world, or if you've been delved into it for decades, I still think there's room for us to appreciate ourselves, listen to ourselves. There's a great wisdom that we all have, and that wisdom is really everything that we need to navigate any challenge that's thrown at us, right? We seek out there, we go to monasteries, we go to monks, and we go to mountains, and we try to seek these answers out there somewhere. But really we have that it's intrinsic within ourselves. The guru is within only if you're willing to slow down and listen, right? So this is that time, I believe, no matter where you are on the spectrum, I think it's a beautiful opportunity to create a love affair with yourself. So because again, a lot of time people come to me with relationship issues and they say, Jay, I'm going through this and that, or where can I find my perfect partner? I said, listen, before you go out to find somebody, have you basically even understood yourself? And if you don't if you don't understand yourself, how is it going to be possible for you to find what it means to be compatible? Compatibility means you understand compatibility means you understand your features and functions. So then the compatibility is where there would be a complementary set of features and functions, right? And so I think it's so important to do this. So number one, so that's good from a compatibility, from understanding, using this time. But also the second thing, which is also part of your question, is mental health is such a significant part of physical health, right? So you all know about the placebo effect. I don't need to emphasize about that. But the whole idea of that, when you believe you're going to survive, you will survive. When you believe that you are healthy, your body has a chance to build the antibodies to fight against any invader, right? So your parasympathetic nervous system is in the control of your peaceful mind. And a turbulent or a worried or a fearful mind is basically putting it into the sympathetic nervous system, which is suppressing your immunity. So if there is one thing, if you're not a medical profession, you don't have any other access to science, there's one thing that you do have access to, is the power of a peaceful mind has a predominant effect in being able to fight off any virus that's going to come and attack you. So let your immunity, let that God-given gift, that innate system be available for you to be able to do what it needs to do.
So, well, this is the perfect time to get into that. Do you have any simple meditation that anybody who's a beginner can take up, which doesn't require a lot of training? Is there something they can do? Is there something we can do in the middle of a stressful moment? What do you suggest? What would you recommend? Should we do something?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's try it. Yeah, let's go for it.
Okay, lead us into it.
Yeah, definitely. So as you are getting down into this space, first I'd like to say that for those of you especially brand new to meditation, I'm going to gradually work your way from the world of your senses being aware of what's happening around you to what's happening inside of you, right? So that's the transition. We're going to go from, if you'd like to call it, from your eyes looking out slowly we got to turn that round to your eyes looking with it. Okay. So the very first thing I like to do is to first of all drop into your physical body. So let's do a shoulder roll. So as you're breathing in, I want you to raise your shoulders, take them back, and as you're breathing out, you drop it. Breathing in, filling your lungs to the depths, and then rolling it back. And as you're breathing out, let's repeat that a couple more times. Breathing in, exhaling through the mouth. And then one last time, breathing in as you're raising your shoulders. And then you may keep your eyes closed or open, doesn't matter. And continue the deep breathing. And when I say deep, I want you to breathe into your belly. Just like when you see a baby sleeping very peacefully, you'll notice the rise and the collapse of the abdomen, not the chest. And as you're observing your breath going in through the nostril, going up and down the windpipe, filling your lungs, you're taking in the fresh oxygen. And as you're breathing out, the body lets go of what it does not need, which comes out as a warm exhale. Now, I want you to pay attention to that inflection point. Notice where the air goes up through the nostrils and turns around and goes down the windpipe. That inflection point, which is called the bridge of the nose, right behind where the eyebrows meet. And this is the seat of memories. This is the seat of all creativity. It is also the seat of consciousness. Imagine the seat of consciousness to be like a tiny little star, a star that glows ever so gently inside your head. Now, let the light from the star fill and surround your brain. Now let this light fill and surround your face, your nose, your lips, cheeks, chin, forehead. The right ear, the back of your head, the left ear, inside the teeth, the tongue. Now let this light go down through the throat passage into your chest region. The light touches your heart, the stomach, the kidneys, the liver, into the intestines, into your hip region. And let the light go down just the left leg, through the thigh to the knee, down through the shin to the ankle and the foot and the toes. And then send this light down from the hip through the right leg, through the thigh, to the knee, to the calf, ankle, foot, and toes. So from the left shoulder now, let's send this light down the left arm. Through the upper arm to the elbow, forearm, wrist, and fingers. Similarly, through the right shoulder into the right arm, through the upper arm to the elbow, forearm, wrist, and fingers. At this point, the entire body space is filled with this light. Now imagine this light emerges through the skin, radiating out about 6 inches in all directions, creating an aura. This aura surrounds you, above you, below you, sides, front, and back. Now, this light that surrounds your body is protecting your body from any external harm. And the light inside your body is healing the body of any ailments. And I want you to extend that light out into the world so this light that is healing can heal your home. Extend it out for it to fill your neighborhood. Extend it out to fill your city. Extend it further to fill the entire country. And then finally, let's shroud the entire planet Earth with this energy of healing light. Gradually bringing your awareness back to the seat of consciousness in the forehead. Notice how you feel right now in this moment. And how does this moment compare with when you walked in here about 40 minutes ago? And set an intention for yourself, if you wish, that you will keep this energy as you go about with your activities and engagements. Sort of seeing your future self and blessing yourself with this energy to prevail. Thank you.
Thank you. I thought we were meditating for hours. I do my meditation daily, but it's been a while since I did a guided meditation. So it was amazing. Thank you. And to anybody who is out there watching, it can be as simple as this. There are lots of resources out there to practice what makes the most sense to you. It is not necessary that no one person has a monopoly on these techniques, but I'm so grateful you introduced something very simple, something down to earth.
Thank you.
Do you have any, words of wisdom? Anything you want to say to people? How they can use this time, not just to survive, but to go ahead in life?
Mm-hmm.
Because for me, some of the most challenging times in my life were also the times that helped me soar to where I am today. People look at my external resume and say, oh, Shankar is doing so many good things. What they don't know is my inner resume, the challenges and how I evolved through that. Did you go through any such major challenges which helped you grow?
Oh,
Is that
absolutely.
something you can share?
Absolutely. Challenges happen on a daily basis. I think most recently, probably that's on my mind, is that, I had to move homes in the middle of this pandemic. Because,
That's true. That's true. How did you do that?
well, it's just an intention that, it's like, there's a saying that when you feel that you're being pulled in life, let go of the leash. So I think if you ask me, how did I do that? Ultimately, it's just one word, let go, or one phrase, I guess. And the moment I decided that, I didn't want to deal with prolonging that situation anymore. In this previous tenant situation, the landlord was, expecting a whole lot more for this place. When I just sort of said that that's to me that I had legally the rights to stay there because of, we have laws around in this country and in the state that protect my, ability to stay. But then just the mental, positive, peaceful state of mind that was being, at risk there. To
Mhm.
me, letting that go basically opened up this whole beautiful possibilities of, the moving, people helping, everything coming together. And here we are, just landed in this, awesome place, more spacious, warmer, beautiful, relaxed, quiet neighborhood. And yeah, so it's just, I think the decision that really, the effort is not really the one outside. The effort is really that decision, that commitment to yourself that this is my priority, and therefore this is how I'm going to safeguard my values, right? And the rest will follow.
Wow, and it's interesting. You moved into my hometown, whereas I always wanted to move to Mill Valley and all those, the Marine County and all that.
Right.
Very interesting, the transition. And so what you're saying is really pay attention to what's happening, and things that are not meant to be may move out, even if you're clinging on to them.
Right.
People losing jobs, people losing even family members.
Yeah.
So
And not necessarily losing, just, losing them to death, but losing them to conflict. And, because what's happened is people have not really spent this much of time with quote unquote loved ones. And what is that out was like, otherwise, when you had a situation, you could easily distract yourself by running away and saying, oh, I got to go to the gym, or I got to go play golf, or I got to go shopping, or I got to whatever, right? Go away to the office, or, but now there's no way to go. There's no distraction. There's no escape. So what's happening is you got to deal with whatever's coming up, both inside you and between you.
True.
So
In fact, they say the divorce rate in Wuhan almost doubled after after their first bout of the pandemic. So going inwards, finding that relationship with oneself. I've been thinking of the right term, and as we were talking and we were doing the meditation, I think I come up with a new term: inner selfie.
Inner selfie.
So it's like, okay, look at yourself, take a selfie, but not for the outer world. The inner selfie, the selfie of who am I? What am I doing in this world? Because that's irrespective of any thought, any belief, any faith, or if you're an atheist, well, all the more reason. There's somebody here who's thinking, feeling uncomfortable or comfortable, seeking. So who is this person?
Right.
And to really focus on that. So with that, I would love to again say thank you, Jay. It's been a joy knowing you for more than 10 years. I think we met probably at the first Wisdom 2.0 conference, or first or second, way back, when we were talking about technology taking a part in the wisdom movement or self-awareness movement. And now we've gone to the next level using social media, using live streams, but again, going even further deeper. Not the 1 minute meditation, not the 10 minutes staying away from Facebook and social media, but now really understanding who am I, what's my purpose in life. That has nothing to do with any other quest, but what am I really doing?
Right.
Anything else you want to add to that?
No, I think you said a lot of things that you've summarized it well. The only other thing I would say is that, see, this is another challenging time for some families, depending on how you look at it, is that they are having to deal with kids being home, schools being closed. And for the foreseeable future, at least here in California, we don't even know. Right now, the schools are going to reopen in the fall, but we don't know if that's really going to happen. That's the date until which we know it's not going to open. So as a result of which, there is this considered to be an extra duty that people are parents are feeling that they're nannies, they're cooks, and caretakers and all of that. My suggestion there is, please try to be creative. This is a gift that you'll never get back. The time the bonding, the opportunity for you to transmit your values, your skill sets, your inheritance, really, to speak, to your children. So be creative in how you're going to utilize your time together, how you're going to keep them engaged while you're getting your things done, and then how you can spend this quality time to really grow together as a family and to really find a deep sense of respect and love for each other. do not lose this opportunity. I know there's some of the countries are already lifting and people are starting to run out already, but some countries we still have a little bit more time before that happens. So take advantage of this and really create. And if you're not a family person, if you're alone, even that, ask yourself, what is the meaning of life for me? What's important for me in life? And you see, when you come from clarity, your path becomes clear. So the choices that you pick from there on is easy because you've done the homework, and homework requires you to be at home, so to speak, right? Internal. When I say home, it's not watching Netflix, at home at feeling comfortable with oneself. When you've done that homework, everything else is easy because you figured out who you are and what you want. When you don't have those two fundamental metrics, then everything is very complicated, and you get this blaming and shaming, and because you're seeking for your answers outside when really the answers need to be found within. And yes, we found complementarity outside, right? It's not I'm asking to go live in a mountain in a monastery, to be celibate and so on. But yeah, find yourself so that the rest of it will follow, as the famous song goes.
So one question, a logistical question. I'm going to post this on social media. My favorite ones being Facebook, LinkedIn, maybe even Instagram and others. Is it okay to share your contact information? Because if people have any questions, they can directly approach me or Jay. Again, whatever we can answer, we will. If need be, we can even do a follow-up session. Is it okay to share your contact information directly on the handles on Instagram or Facebook, Twitter?
Yeah, so Jay Chodagam, you probably have the name, but the website is Find Within. So it's findwith.in. So that's how I break up the word, findwith.in is the website, and Awaken Spirit on Instagram. So yeah, I'm happy to share all of this. You don't have to remember it, but yeah, thank you. Yeah, absolutely.
And please give us your feedback. We're not doing anything rocket science here. We're really going back to the basics. If there's anything we can do further, if there's any other things that we've left untouched or incomplete, we can always continue in a future conversation or through the threads of these conversations. Thanks again for joining us. And thank you, Jay. It's such an amazing thing to be again with you from a distance and feeling your presence in this room.
Yeah, a big hug to you, Shankar. Thank you very much.
Big hug.